Friends, today's topic is, in some respects, a rather quirky one, but can I say something that I had saved the best for the last? And I think when you go through the presentation today, you'll get an idea why I am saying so, because this is really tying everything up together. And when we have to tie everything together, it requires a very systematic approach. Just like, the links that are there in the chain, the links have to join in together in a sequence such that they all form, that they provide the strength from one link to the other to the other. And as they say, the weakest point in a chain is the weakest link in the chain itself. So that's what determines the strength of the chain itself. So what I was saying is that, I've saved the best for the last because this needs a little bit of a background. So today what we're going to be talking about, and I'll get on and get into the share mode. It's really about the art of interior design. Now, when I came up with this topic, I know people would be thinking that, is this an interior design class, or is this actually a radical wellness or a yoga and a meditation class? Well, friends, let me be very clear over here that the whole process of creating anything, whether you want to create your health and wellness, you want to create the ideal relationship, or you want to create abundance, wealth, and prosperity in your life, the basis is the same. It is all energy at the end of the day. And we are all co-creating. By saying co-creating, I mean we cannot create anything individually because we have a creator, but we can partner, we can collaborate with this superior source, the universal intelligence, and create our reality. So that's the basis, and there is an art to it. There is a science behind it as well, which we'll talk about, but then there is an art which you will bring as an individual, and you will add your twist to it. So there is a blend of the art on one side and the science on the other side. And I often give the example of the Wright brothers. Wright brothers, I've quoted their story in the past as well, and I'm so fascinated by them, primarily also because as a child, I was really fascinated by flying objects. They would just kind of, enamor me. But what was crucial was Wright brothers did not break the law of gravity. They did not. They worked in with the law of gravity, and by adjusting the angle of the wing, it creates a law of lift. It creates that lift which causes the aircraft to be taken up along with the wings. So it's the wings that go up and the aircraft takes off as well. So that's like, those are the things that really fascinate me. There is an art behind it, and then there is a science behind it. So we are all creators. There is no question about it. You look around yourself, and the simplest measure of whether you are leading a successful life that you are happy with or not is very, very easy to determine. Just look around yourself what you have created. If you're really happy with whatever you have created, hey, you are doing really well. You know how to utilize those principles. But for some of us, life takes a detour. It is not a straight road. And we are all faced with challenges from time to time. And I think our true essence comes out when we are faced with challenge, when we are faced with hunger, when we are faced with pain, when we are faced with suffering, and most importantly, when we are faced with a situation where we struggle to find meaning in whatever we are doing. So the two key questions are over here in terms of our being able to perform and function as effective creators is, number one, can we really create our reality every day? And the second is, can we, I use the word manage synchronicities. Now that's a big ask, managing synchronicities. The other way of Other word for synchronicity is coincidences. You think about a person and that person calls you. You're looking for a book, you've been looking, and you can't find it, and suddenly you find that book. These are all phenomena which cannot be explained by scientific rules. They cannot be explained by some equation. But you know what? We all experience it from time to time. Do we have the ability to actually manage it? And I have shared some examples in these classes in the past, but I'll just go over that very quickly. So as I said to you, that you cannot change the direction of the wind, but you can adjust the sails. That's precisely what the Wright brothers did. They adjusted the design of the aircraft and the wing in such a way that the wind that was blowing now started to take the aircraft with it. That is beautiful. Now, given that I'm a health and a medical practitioner, my area of work is really focused on the health and wellness aspect of it. I've been studying this for the last 30 years now, and I firmly believe that we have the ability to determine our health and wellness destiny. And I'll give you a small example of when I first got the taste of it. I was like any other medical doctor, going through the training, then became a surgeon. Obviously, after years of, I call it hardship, but hard training, it was really tough. We went through all those episodes of, sometimes we would lose patients despite all our efforts and all that. But when I got into private practice, this is going back about 10 years ago, I still remember I had a lovely patient. Her name was Samantha. I can't quite remember her family name, but Samantha came to me and she needed surgery on her stomach, as in actually on the stomach. So we went through several tests and all of that. And as it happens, we went through the consent form. Samantha was in her mid-30s or early 40s, but unfortunately, she developed a complication, a point where we had joined a portion of her stomach to the small bowel. It did not heal properly because of the previous operations that she had had on the stomach itself. And there was a leakage. Leakage was quite significant. And as you all know, stomach makes acid. When acid leaks out, it literally starts to destroy all the tissues. It was a pretty serious situation. Samantha was almost on the point of having to go to ICU, where once patients start to go to ICU, it's not a good sign. Now, I was really trying whatever I could. We had a team of doctors from other specialties who were also looking after her nutrition, control of infection, and doing more surgery was really not considered to be the best option. But you know what, friends, something shifted in me on that day when I came back from the hospital, came back home. I went into we had a little prayer room, So I went there. I said, you know what? Let me see if I can pray for Samantha. Let me see if I can actually send her healing wishes. That's all. That was the only thing that I had in my mind. And I started to do this on a regular basis with this intention that I would do morning and evening, just as an experiment. I said, look, let me do it. I've never looked at myself as a religious person, although I do have spiritual values, and I do consider myself more a spiritualist rather than a religious. Friends, it is going to surprise you, because it certainly did surprise me, that her leakage after day 7 started to slow down. We had 3 drain tubes around her, and they were draining fluid from her belly outside because we didn't want it to collect inside. And will you believe it, that she stayed in hospital for somewhere short of 3 weeks. But after day 7, her drainage began to slow down, and she actually made an uneventful recovery. She's not seen me for a few years now, but she followed up with me for a few years after her discharge, and she was doing really well. Now, that incident blew me away. That incident completely blew me away, that whether this was just a coincidence that I started praying for Samantha, that please sending her healing energy, please allow her to heal. And that was it. I don't know whether, is there a show of hands if I could ask, do you guys feel that there is something that, have you experienced anything like this? Anyone? Thanks, Steph. Yeah, just a show of hands. If you could just let me know that you've experienced something on these lines, like not necessarily with patients, but you thought of something and that person just appeared. You were thinking of someone and their phone call came through. Awesome. That's great. So, friends, today's discussion is really going to center around the seed. That means, if you see the acorn, which is on the right side of the screen, this acorn turns into a massive giant oak tree. It has the potential to turn into an oak tree. However, if it is not placed in the adequate environment, if I just took the acorn and just put it in my pocket and kept going around, or kept it on my study desk and just left it there, well, that's not going to transform into an oak tree, not at all. But if it is planted inside the soil and it receives the adequate temperature, the water, and the other nutrients from the soil, from within the acorn seed starts to emerge the shoots of a giant oak tree. And that's the analogy that we are going to be using today when it comes to aging and disease. Friends, aging and disease has been studied extensively for centuries. So we are not creating something breakthrough here. But what is important to understand is that the common denominator of aging or disease is that there is ongoing damage to our repair and regenerative mechanisms, which is why the body's ability, the reserve, gets compromised. Whether you look at it on the left side, where there are different kinds of, these are more technical names, so I won't be going into that. But the basis is there is oxidative damage and increased inflammation, which leads to destruction or disintegration of the tissues. Now, as we have spoken in the past, that the genes are the blueprint. Genes form the blueprint of what kind of proteins your body is going to make. So in younger people, as you can see, the ends, which is the telomere, the length is long. But with age, those telomeres become smaller and smaller in size, and that is representing how much life is left in that particular gene. So stay with me. These genes are really the blueprint that is defining the quality and the kind of protein that your body is making. Now, what is important? The key thing to understand is what is controlling your genes. Now, this is what we spoke about maybe 2 or 3 classes ago, that our genes, initially the thinking process was that if you've got a gene, say, of breast cancer or prostate cancer or diabetes, well, you are going to get that disease. Well, that is not true anymore. The thing is, genes by itself do not tell you that this person is going to get a disease, because the genes are then influenced by the environment, the signals from the environment. And there are 2 types of environment. One is the internal environment, and the other is the external environment, which influences the genes. So the information that I'm going to give you, see, you can take information in 2 parts. When you just focus on matter, which is form, you call it information. But when you start looking at the spiritual aspect of things, which means that the quantum or the energetic aspect of things, you then take it to a level called inspiration. And we have always spoken about it. The transformation happens when you take the information and you put it into action such that you feel truly inspired. That's the basis of change. So whatever I'm going to be telling you, if you can distill it in a way that it makes sense to you, and you then start applying it, I can tell you your results will start to give you feedback, which will cause information to transform into inspiration. And that is when you become a force of nature, because you've realized how to work it out, how to actually, now these, we are all works in progress. Let me be very clear about it. No one can master this. You have, even monks have struggled to do this. Forget about us. Philosophers like Socrates, Aristotle, and all those giants on the shoulders of whom we stand today have spent a lifetime on this complete subject. But I think even if we can make progress, friends, progress is the key thing. You know what is true nobility? True nobility is not to be better than someone else. True nobility is better than who you were yesterday or the day before or the year before. So as long as you are making progress, that is what really leads to spiritual wisdom. So most of us, as I've said, humans know most of the times what to do, but they don't often do what they know. So taking this theory and putting it into practical is the most important bit. So let's look at that model of the genes. As I just told you, genes are signaling those proteins. Can I just have a show of hands that people are getting it? I hope I'm not too technical over here. I hope I'm making sense. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So the point that I'm trying to make here is, friends, that, how from thoughts to how do we create the influence? And by influence, I mean not just on ourselves. How can we influence matter around us? That's my area of interest. I'm not trying to manipulate anything with a selfish interest. I am approaching it from a sense of curiosity, from a sense of bewilderment, from a sense, as the famous Turkish poet Rumi said that, if ever you could do one thing, sell your cleverness and purchase bewilderment. What he meant by this is this nature, this world is so beautiful that every time you need to approach it with a sense of awe, with a sense of, wow, we could never imagine that it would look so beautiful. So continuing with our discussion, what happens is, depending on the kind of thoughts that individual is experiencing, if they are positive thoughts, what happens is that it sends a different signal to your genes in comparison to when you are thinking negative thoughts. Now, what I mean by negative thoughts is when an individual has got a highly strung stress response, which makes the individual go into a survival mode, it sends a different signal to the gene, which then creates a corresponding quality of the protein. Okay, now mind you, hormones, enzymes, lots of nerve transmitters, which are the signal carriers in our body, are all proteins. They are all made out of amino acids, which is the basis of protein. Lots of amino acids join together and form a protein. So this is just the basis. So what happens is that when you are consistently thinking draining, lower energy thoughts, those are the signals that are going to the genes, and the genes are producing poor quality proteins. By poor quality, I mean that this quality of protein is probably not as energized, because let's not forget, the quantum law says that energy and matter is constantly changing the form. Matter has got an electromagnetic field around it. Now, imagine if you had an individual who was consistently thinking negative thoughts, consistently in survival mode, consistently stressed out. What would happen is the genes would be getting consistently signaled for that negative low energy state, and the proteins will match the genetic signal that is being given, which means they will again be a poor quality protein, which means that the tissues that these proteins are going to form eventually are also going to be of low quality, which means that the electromagnetic radiation that these tissues will have will also be of poor quality. Now, when you come in contact with a person like this, and as we have said earlier, that the heart is the seat of your emotions, it has got 600 times more electromagnetic field than that of your brain. So stay with me. What happens next is that when you create poor quality proteins, that leads to poor quality cells and tissues, which leads to either an expanded or a contracted electromagnetic field. The EM field is electromagnetic field. And this is the field that every one of us creates around ourselves. For someone who is in optimal health and vitality, this electromagnetic field is up to 3 meters all around you. Up to 3 meters. If anyone comes into that field and you are radiating thoughts of love, compassion, forgiveness, gratitude, they will sense it. People can sense your energy sitting miles away. Forget about just someone coming into your energetic field. However, if you are in a low energetic state, which is causing low or poor quality proteins to be fashioned, which means there is poor quality of cells and tissues that are being repaired and regenerated, it is going to lead to a contracted or a shrunken electromagnetic field. And that electromagnetic field essentially you can only do little with it. You cannot influence anyone positively. Now, mind you, I'm using the word influence in a very cautious manner here, because it's not about trying to manipulate someone for your own selfish interest. No, that's not the intention. But the basis is to study this like a scientist. Study this, as I just mentioned, can we manage coincidences? Can we manage synchronicity? And that is what prompted me to delve further into this subject and tie everything together. So I hope this is making sense, guys. Just a show of hands. Is it actually tying in? Can you actually see how the whole thought process is gradually flowing into the genetic signal, into the proteins, cells and tissues, and the electromagnetic field that it is creating? Thank you. So coming down to the practical bits, because once again, I am a doer. I want to know, yes, all this theory is great, but I need to know, what can I do today? So friends, after several years of studies, experimentation, going through my own journey and all of that, I came up, in my current level of ignorance, I came up with this 4-step process to co-creating. There are 4 steps to doing it. The first and the foremost thing, and I'll be going backwards, forwards, just to elaborate on these points very quickly. The point is, the first step is to get yourself in the present moment, which is the gap, which means that a lot of us spend time, if you look at it, in the past. We are anchored to our past, or we are sometimes really, really anxious about the future, which means we don't know what to do. We are planning our future. What happens if you are delving too much in the past or too much in the future is that the past leads to depression, which means you say, oh, that person did this to me, and there is blame there, there is guilt there, there is shame there. Those are not elevating emotions, okay? And when you are worrying about what's happening in the future, well, it can only lead to anxiety, because no one knows what's going to happen in the future. So that's where the most important thing is to firstly have the step number 1 right, which is get yourself into the present moment awareness. There's always a gap, very tiny gap between losing yourself into the future or starting to worry about the past. So that's number 1. The next step is that of, friends, called setting your intention. See, clarity is the key. Any great leader you take from history, they had one thing in common. They had a vision for their life. They could see things in the eye of their mind before they actually did anything. Nelson Mandela, Mahatma Gandhi, Wright brothers, as we just spoke, Martin Luther King, amazing people who had a clear intention on what mattered to them. What did they stand for? Next is a phase which is called elevate your emotion. Now, we've already seen this. Sorry, I'll move. So just on the power of clarity, if you take this image of, 2 glasses, on one side, you have muddy water, which has got water with mud in it and the other side is the clear water, how do you convert one into clear, the muddy water into clear? How do you do that? The answer is very simple, friends. Answer is stillness. Just let the mud settle down. And that's precisely what is done in meditation. We are trying to still our minds because this mind is creating confusion. It is creating brain fog. And that is what is leading to this situation. The third step, as I mentioned to you, is to elevate the emotion. We have already spoken that the heart is the seat of your intelligence and emotional intelligence, especially. It has got a 600 times greater electromagnetic field than the brain. And that is where I feel we feel our positive and our negative emotions. And that's where it is important to recognize and get aware of this. So, and the last step, which is, sorry, I'm just going backwards, forwards, is the last and the most crucial step is to let go, surrendering to that higher intelligence, which will work out the details for you. And that's the most important thing. Bringing the image of what you want to manifest into the aliveness of the present moment, and then having the courage to then let it go. These are the most important things to bear in mind. And one thing that we often miss out on is infinite patience brings immediate results. Now, that's a hard one. It may almost sound like a contradictory statement, but look at the tomato sapling, the tomato shoots are so weak, but you have to the farmer puts their trust that yes, these tomato seeds will eventually turn into real tomatoes. And that's exactly what we see here, that you have to have patience so that you are letting go and letting nature do its job. So what is the key thing over here when we are looking at creating a self-realized life? There are two key aspects. One is radical forgiveness and the other is radical gratitude. When we bring forgiveness and gratitude into the equation, we consciously create what is called as radical wellness. My purpose of creating the Radical Wellness program was really to give the science and the tools that the individuals can use without making people dependent on supplements and probiotics and more pills and all of that. Because at the end of the day, our body knows how to heal. Friends, this is a fact. Our bodies is an amazing machine. It's an amazing piece of machinery, and it actually knows how to heal itself. We just have to get out of its way. And sometimes because of our over-analysis and then delving into all those negative emotion states of guilt, shame, and blame, we create, it has been said that we don't die, we kill ourselves. And that is so true. So I think moving forward, I'm reminded of Eckhart Tolle's quote, who said that as humanity awakens, so too will our powers to create true change on our planet. When you start to shift yourself, you start to influence your family, your surroundings, and people automatically start to get influenced by your positivity, by what you are radiating out. You cannot force anyone to change. We should not even try that, even though many of us are parents and we think we can control our kids. They are meant to be like doing things like this. Not at all. They were born through us, but they do not belong to us. And that's very crucial to understand. So I'm not going to delve much into detail in the interest of time, but in terms of synchronicities, I have mentioned in the past that I manifested seeing green flowers. Who would have seen that there is a flower that is green in color? And I had this realization once in my meditation, and literally within an hour or so after that, I let go of this, and I was on my morning walk, and I actually saw this succulent, which was in the shape of green flowers. It completely blew my mind away. The same thing happened with our pet, Snowy. It's a bunny rabbit that we have, and those are my two beautiful kids. And we had lost our bunny rabbit. And we were like, for 3 days, she was away. We thought a fox might have taken her. And we were very, very scared for her. And the kids were very teary. We did a meditation together, me and the kids. And we said, you know what? Let's focus our energy that wherever she is good, she's safe, and she will return to us when the moment is right. We just let go of that intention, and you won't believe it. Within half an hour after that, we got a phone call that Snowy, our pet, has been spotted. And within an hour after that, she was back with us. Poor thing was really exhausted. We took a photo of that, and she was scared as well because she was in someone's backyard running from here, there to there. And, it was just a scary thought for her. And we were so amazed, even till today. This happened, friends, about 4 months ago. But even today, we think about that and we get chills. So I guess the only thing, again, I'm going to just skip this, but what I just want to say to you is the last paragraph of this poem by James T. Moore is that you are a unique being. And as Mark Twain said, be yourself. Everyone else is taken. We just have to be authentic and allow that seed to grow within our hearts, because that is the only thing which will allow and give us the true knowledge, true wisdom that we are all seeking, such that we can become the best version of ourselves. So I want to take a moment here to thank every one of you, because you have all been an integral part of this journey of radical wellness for 8 weeks. Today is the last class, and I know I'm having mixed feelings of both joy as well as sadness, because I think we built a kind of community on this platform. I'm joyful because I'm working on my next book, which is called the title of the book is Your Mess Has a Message. And I'm really excited, and I want to give the next 8 weeks focused onto this book, the work that I have been doing for the last few months now, and it's taking momentum now, and it's gaining momentum, I should say, and it's taking shape, and I can see it clearly in the eye of my mind. But I'm also saddened because I felt that, more than anyone else, I was so grateful, firstly, for the opportunity that every one of you gave me to share my thoughts, my ideas. And you were such a delightful audience. You were so sincere, and you were amazing with your feedback. So I am truly, truly, from the core of my heart, I'm really grateful for your support and for your presence. So the one thing that I also wanted to mention was that I did try, some technical issues came up with the drums performance that I wanted to do today in front of everyone. But what I have done is I have recorded the song last night, and I have uploaded it onto my YouTube channel. So all you need to do is, after the class is finished, you can go to just search my name. There is a YouTube channel that I have, and the latest song on that is For a Dancer. And the friends, the reason why I picked this song was that the words were so pertinent, and I have just written that one line over here, that into a dancer you have grown, from a seed somebody else has thrown. Go on ahead and throw some seeds of your own, and somewhere between the time you arrive and the time you go may lie a reason you were alive. And I think we are alive today. Just the fact that we are all alive today, we are listening to each other, we are learning from each other, we are exchanging from each other, is reason enough for us to question who we are, where did we come from, and where are we going, and what is the purpose of this beautiful life. And if I can be an instrument of service to inspire you to think on these lines, I consider this my great fortune and great opportunity. So I think with that note, I'm going to give it a pause there. Any questions, any comments before we go on to our yoga and then finally the meditation? Anything? I am going to actually make a request towards the end for everyone to please, make sure that you are you can give us some feedback on our Radical Wellness Facebook page about your experience, whether you benefited, or if there's anything else that you might want to be included in this class for the next term, which will be starting in July. We will send out information to you about